The Planets is by far Gustav Holst's most famous composition. He started the first of the 7 movements in 1914 and completed the 7th one in 1916. He composed the first movement, Mars the Bringer of War, in anticipation for World War I, which would start just months afterwards. Even though war had not yet broken out, people knew that it was coming. This was the time period in which people lived out normal lives but created armies just as a precaution. Gustav Holst's life was depressing to say the least. His mother passed away when he was young and his father was busy with his career as a pianist. He suffered from asthma and needed eyeglasses, but nobody bothered to notice either health condition. Due to these conditions, he was not permitted to serve in the war, which depressed him even more. Each one of the movements in the planets is named after one planet and is written in response to astrology rather than the specific planet itself. The movements are found in the following order: Mars the Bringer of War, Venus the Bringer of Peace, Mercury the Winged Messenger, Jupiter the Bringer of Jollity, Saturn the Bringer of Old Age, Uranus the Magician, and Neptune the Mystic. Gustav Holst believed that true happiness was unattainable and illustrates this with the planets. The piece starts with Mars the Bringer of War, an illustration of society at war. The final battle that ultimately ends this war is seen in measure 169 with the rhythmic phrase ending in a low-pitched fermata chord. This whole phrase is sustained at fortissimo, or very, very, very loud. This note ends this time of turmoil with such intense emotion that the will to fight has been exhausted. This leads into the second movement, Venus the Bringer of War, with a single French horn establishing a mood of tranquility and contentment. This shows this peaceful period that comes after war. The third movement, Mercury the Winged Messenger, reverts back to an intense mood, as this tranquility cannot last. Because of the trauma that society had experienced during wartime, this innate and animalistic instinct eventually surfaces and causes them to be dissatisfied with their lives. This society is frantic and frenzied, seen with the triplet eighth note phrases passed between the woodwind section. This change in mood demonstrates that the peace portrayed in Venus is temporary. This restless mood is soon replaced by a sense of contentment. Mercury transitions into Jupiter, the bringer of jollity, because emotions of restlessness and discontentment became so intense that society had lost its desire for satisfaction. One of Jupiter's stately and simple themes is seen in measure 108 to 125. Those simple quarter notes, the notes create a beautiful melody that contrasts with Mercury to portray the uplifting and hopeful mood that comes after a time of unrest. After this turmoil has ceased, people in society move on in life. Saturn, the bringer of old age, illustrates an aging people. This process is depressing and evokes a melancholy mood. They have lost their liveliness, as shown in measure 28, which is marked poco animato, meaning little motion. The contrast between the liveliness and energy in Jupiter and the slow pace in Saturn illustrates a society after turmoil has ceased. Holst also uses Uranus the Magician, the fifth movement in his work, to symbolize a negative and maniacal yet dominant influence on society. This furthers the belief that true happiness is unattainable. This dominant force is demonstrated in measure 118 to 120, when the brass section overpowers the woodwinds with an edgy and demanding tone. The woodwinds represent society. Their actions are contorted and made fanatical under the influence of the magician. Finally, Neptune the Mystic represents one's last stage in life. Death is represented by the closing of the door connecting the audience to a chorus, hidden from sight. The hidden voices create a mysterious and eerie mood. This death is illustrated as natural and peaceful, but also tainted with a melancholy sorrow. This supports Gustav Holst's mindset that one will inevitably die with a feeling of discontentment. In The Planets, Holst tells of a society that loses its will to fight in war and transitions to a peaceful time. However, the devastation from the war inevitably brings out the animalistic characteristics in people, selfishness and discontentment. This discontentment soon transitions back to a simple and stately lifestyle. As society ages, people lose their energy and negative influences are prevalent in society. People die peacefully, but with the disheartening knowledge that true happiness is unattainable.